Lots of clouds and it's cold today. They say it might rain tomorrow actually. And what's going on today? How about this one? You've heard a lot of news in the US when it comes to sporting events. There's a no-fly ban in effect, and apparently in this one, they're showing how in a Formula One racing event, the police released video and all that of somebody trying to fly their drone around the area, and they show how they caught them and all that. This one says, the airspace over the Vegas Strip is restricted. Please keep your drone dreams grounded. LVMPD keeping Vegas safe for F1 and always. It's kind of interesting. You see the guy get out of his car, he's flying the drone, and then whatever tracking software they're using. As an example, you can see the flight path, and then all of a sudden, these police officers come. It just seems kind of crazy to me. Like, granted, for example, it's a no-fly zone and all that, but you think the guy was like an armed robber or something like that with how much police forces there were. Is anybody here actually from that area in Vegas where you're familiar with it and know whether or not the guy was super close to the event and all that? As well too, with that thought of things like remote ID and the delay of it in the US, how about in this case? I doubt that guy fully, complied with remote ID tracking and all that. So how about in this case too? Would you say if you're able to catch someone flying, let's just say in a quote, no-fly zone already with the resources you have and all that, why do you necessarily need that in place where you're just going to affect, for example, people doing absolutely nothing wrong and all that too? And with that topic of neutralizing drones, I guess you could say, how about this one? This one says, China's anti-drone gun debuts in joint drills with SE Asian countries. The Chinese People's Liberation Army deployed a new type of anti-drone gun during an ongoing multinational joint exercise with Southeast Asian countries as China looks to address threats from small drones that have become common in recent conflicts around the globe, analysts said on Monday. During the Amman-Yoyi 2023 joint drills being held in Zhejiang, South China's Guangdong province, a type of portable drone reconnaissance and countermeasure system made its debut, China Central Television reported on Sunday. Having an appearance like a rifle with a scope, the system can effectively detect, track, locate, and recognize drones flying at low altitudes according to the report. These things often look humongous from the pictures I've seen online and all that. It says the gun has a weight of 3.5 kilograms and its lithium battery can support 120 minutes of use, allowing it to conduct directional interference against drones within 1.5 kilometers by forming an interference area of 17 degrees, CCTV reported. After disrupting a target, the gun can have it landed or shot down, the report said. In general, it's just my thought, as I said before, you should find more ways, in my opinion, to, take care of the drone in general, rather than over-the-top regulations telling everybody, oh, you need to register this and that. Doesn't matter if it's a toy, stay over 5 kilometers away, like from a sporting event, for example, even if you're just in your own private property, flying no higher than your, house or something like that. That would be more reasonable, in my opinion, a more common sense based rather than a fear-based approach. And with the topic of laws, this was actually really fascinating because recently here in Canada, they implemented a law of sort that actually bans single-use plastic. So things, for example, like a straw that you would use at a fast food restaurant. But apparently, this was challenged, in the court, and the court deemed it as not legal based on the argument of saying it's toxic and all that, to my understanding. So the question is single-use plastic legal now? But this one here says, is Canada's plastics ban gone? Not quite. A court decision that quashed the legal foundations of Canada's plastic regulations might not spell the end of the government's efforts to tackle the plastic pollution problem, observers say. On Thursday, a federal court judge sided with the petrochemical industry in a ruling against the federal government's 2021 decision to list plastic as toxic under federal pollution legislation. A product can be considered legally toxic if it harms or could harm the environment or human health. This designation allows the federal government to develop regulations like Canada's ban on straws, plastic bags, and 4 other single-use plastic items. The ruling found the federal government overstepped its authority to regulate substances by listing all plastic items as toxic instead of specific items shown to cause environmental harm. Typically, a substance is listed as legally toxic if a government risk assessment shows it is both harmful and likely to enter the environment. And an interesting thought here, just in general with rules across various spectrums. It says in a departure from this method, the government justified its decision to list plastics as toxic using a quote science assessment that reviewed roughly 600 scientific papers about plastic pollution and concluded the material poses a threat, but it did not assess the risk that all plastics would end up in the environment. That evaluation came later and is used to justify the ban on some single-use items. The judge determined the federal government's decision to use this unconventional method in justifying the toxic listing wasn't strong enough but did not foreclose all efforts to control the plastic pollution problem, saying this issue is certainly more nuanced than I think most people were led to believe when the decision was released, explained University of Calgary law professor Martin Olazinski. The court isn't saying you can't ban plastic bags. In fact, the court says very clearly there was evidence of harm for these types of things. That's interesting, and it brings up so many topics just in general in terms of creating things like laws. There are cases where just because it's law per se doesn't mean it's quote legal, and if that is the situation where it wasn't based on hard factual evidence, just hundreds of reports of people saying so, it makes you think how many other things is this true in life when it comes to people creating regulations. I mean, that's how it sounds like anyways, even with things like drones, for example, isn't it? People fear-mongering it, oh, it may kill people and this and that. So it's kind of interesting to think about there. Alright, see you guys later.